Today's model of deploying and delivering applications in desktop is really one around lifecycle management, right? I have an application, I deploy that application out to an end user. That's through imaging the application, electronic software distribution, and then I have to worry about managing, backing up, retiring the data and the applications that go with it. And this is very much a push and deploy technology, right? So I'm not looking for when a user needs an app. I'm trying to predict what the end user is going to need, and I push them as much as I think they're going to need, and then have it sitting there at the endpoint. I'm going to back up for a second. So what that ends up with at the endpoint is a very tightly coupled environment. So for all of us that have bought PCs in the last 15, 20 years, what's the best day? What day did you get the best performance out of your PC? The first day you bought it. And then everything went downhill from there. All right? The reason is because over time you begin to layer and layer and layer applications, data, other things on top of your PC, tightly coupling all the different components of your infrastructure. The other challenge to this is that if I need to make a major change, it's going to cost me money. And it may cost me a piece of capital equipment that I need to buy. All of our data centers are built this way. Let's look at your server infrastructure in your data center. How many servers are tied specifically to a specific business function in your organization? I have servers that are for email. I have servers that are for web. I have servers that are for databases. They're all very, very tightly coupled function to hardware, right? So it makes it very complex. It's very difficult to make changes. I'm very, very locked in to a specific infrastructure. Things are ad hoc. If data's down at the endpoint, I have limited control. If I'm trying to control things that are not close to me. And as users get more and more mobile, data goes further and further away from the actual point of control. I have limited work styles that I can support. I run into these if-then scenarios. So I look at the way I'm going to deploy an application, and it's almost like we were back in the mainframe days. If I deploy an application this way, then I need this infrastructure to support it. Look at Outlook. And if I'm in the office, I get a full Outlook client on a network. But in a lot of networks, if I'm remote, I'm using Outlook Web Access. Totally different infrastructure, totally different way of managing and delivering an application. The idea of virtualization is to break that bond. Break the bond between device and the function of that device. So lots of times we're talking about virtualization, we're talking about server virtualization, right? And so we get a lot of benefits out of that, right? We get the ability to quickly provision additional capacity. We can better leverage existing investments, right? So when I look at my server infrastructure, instead of utilizing a server 20%, I can utilize it at 80%, right? And I get the ability to make my data center more dynamic. So I can move workloads, I can change the role of a server very quickly. I get a lot of benefits out of the ability to virtualize servers. But virtualization is not only about servers. It's about a lot of other pieces, and it's about breaking those bonds between the different layers of application and desktop delivery that really make you as an organization more powerful in your ability to serve your end user, right? Storage virtualization, application virtualization, be able to separate the app off of the desktop and deliver them separately on demand. Presentation virtualization, where I may actually isolate an application and deliver it from a central location to a remote user. Desktop virtualization, delivering entire desktops as on-demand services. And even down to client virtualization, where we can virtualize the end client and separate multiple workloads even at the endpoint. A lot of what the cloud is about simplification. All right? And I want to simplify the infrastructure that I need to manage. And so through the power of virtualization, what I have the ability to do is to get closer to one. One copy of each app versus 40,000 copies of an application. One copy of Windows to manage versus multiple copies of Windows on multiple endpoints at different levels of patching and maintaining that application. Workloads that are centralized and managed for the specific server or application workloads that I need to deliver to end users. One instance of data, one ability to deliver that data to the end user and be able to consolidate and make sure that that data remains centralized and secure in my data center. And last but not least, one experience for the end user. A lot of organizations are looking at things like pandemic, right? And they're creating absolutely separate infrastructures to support pandemic, right? Different way of accessing information, different way of using my IT resources. The day a pandemic hits is not the day you want to teach people how to use a new resource, right? If I can use the same resource that I use every day for every other IT purpose, I gain not only advantage of being able to use that environment, but I now don't have to create another separate infrastructure as well.